Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us for an exciting panel discussion on the future of the blue economy. My name is Betsy Brennan, and I'm the president and CEO of the Downtown San Diego Partnership. The Downtown Partnership is a nonprofit organization that serves as the principal voice and driving force behind the economic prosperity and cultural vitality of downtown San Diego through membership, advocacy, and public services. We also serve as the managing organization for several special districts downtown, including the Clean and Safe program that provides essential maintenance, safety, homelessness services, and placemaking in the 275 blocks of downtown San Diego. Our nearly 300 members, representing a variety of business sectors, including real estate, technology, banking, law, defense, insurance, communications, energy, and tourism, many of whom are here today, are committed to nurturing a downtown that benefits the entire San Diego region. We're essentially downtown's biggest fans and cheerleaders, which means we're lucky enough to get opportunities to participate in conversations like the one today. If that sounds like something that aligns well with what you and your organization are hoping to work with on this year, or you'd like to have access to opportunities like this one to connect with the decision makers driving the future of our downtown, we encourage you to check out options for membership within the Downtown Partnership. We are so thrilled to see Harbor Drive and its many industries featured in the episode of Street of Dreams on CNBC with Marcus Lemonis. We know the blue economy is one of the many ways that we're creating a bright future in downtown, and have so enjoyed the opportunity to come together with our friends at the Port of San Diego, the San Diego Regional EDC, and our panelists to learn more about what's in store for this sector. It's a fun benefit of our line of work that we get to be part of conversations like this one. Many thanks to all of you and your teams for making this panel possible today. Thank you also to Gaff and Greg Murphy for bringing us all together to get this idea started and for moderating today's discussion. To all of our panelists, we can't wait to hear more about what you all have in store in the coming years. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and the president and CEO of the San Diego Regional EDC, Mark Cafferty, and one of the co-hosts of this event. Mark?
Thanks, Betsy. It's an honor to be here with the team from the Downtown San Diego Partnership, the Port of San Diego, NAIOP, and really everyone on the screen to take a moment to do something that we just haven't been able to do much of over the last several months, and that's celebrate San Diego the way we really should and the way that we all love to. So as Betsy said, my name is Mark Cafferty, and I'm the president and CEO of the San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation. And we are a private funded nonprofit organization that brings together business and community stakeholders around inclusive economic development strategies that we hope reach all of our small businesses, all corners of our economy, in all corners of our community. And there are few, if any, places in our region where you'll see the true building blocks of our economy: tourism, innovation, military and defense, the border and trade, and the local economy come together quite the same way they do around the ocean, around the waterfront. And that's what we're truly here to celebrate today. So again, thanks to Betsy and her team and all the folks at the Port of San Diego. And with that said, it's my honor to turn things over to a good friend and board member of mine, Yehudi Gaffin, the president and CEO of GAFCON.
Thank you, Mark and Betsy. It's a truly pleasure and honor to be part of this panel, along with the panelists that are here today. I'm not going to read off their bios, they speak for themselves, but I actually feel like I've known all four of them really well. I want to start with Mike Zuchet. My working relationship with Mike goes back to the mid-90s when Mike was the San Diego representative on the Alliance. That was the beginning organization that started planning North Embarcadero. And it was a real pleasure to work with him. I haven't met many people with the intellect, the ability to express himself, to understand complex issues as well as Mike does. And I'm really pleased he's with us today and representing the port in his role as the chair. Margaret Leinen, quickly also, I feel like I've known for many, many years, although it's probably been 3 or 4 since we started working on Seaport. But Margaret heads up the Scripps Institute of Oceanography. She has varied titles, but she's really the boss there. and very, very involved in the blue economy and anything blue. She was part of this for her whole career, worked on research ships, assisted the Obama administration on climate change actions around the ocean, but a real pleasure to be working with her on Seaport. Greg Murphy's, I feel, a real friend as well. Greg started his career at UCSD, went into politics. We all know was really behind the beginnings of the dockside market with Supervisor Greg Cox. Then went in, worked for a nonprofit for the Maritime Alliance, then started his own gig, and I guess industry felt they needed him on board, and he recently joined Blue Nalu that he'll talk about. Pete Helmer is also someone I've gotten to know real well, a true pleasure to work with him. I don't think there are many other people who are as passionate about the commercial fishing industry in San Diego. Pete's an engineer, but gave up engineering to really go fishing. And in his 70s, Pete's out every single day fishing for sea urchins, which, if any of you know, is not the easiest of fishing to do. So a lot of respect for Pete. I'm just quickly going to touch on what the blue economy is, because some people ask what it is, and it represents the sum of economic activity related to the ocean and water industries, and includes the conventional sectors such as commercial fishing and shipbuilding, but also the emerging tech-enabled industries, which are known as blue tech, such as underwater robotic, offshore energy, ocean biotech, and cell-based seafood. Our nation is truly a nation, an ocean nation with a growing blue economy. 127 people live on our coast, which is approximately 40% of the population. In 2018, the blue economy contributed $370 billion to our GDP, supporting 2.3 million jobs, and it grew faster than the nation's economy in its entirety. Economic activity in our nation's seaports grew 17% from 2014 to 2018 to a $5.4 trillion industry comprising nearly 26% of our nation's GDP of roughly 20 trillion. And despite COVID, American seaports are adding infrastructure due to the demand for capacity induced by the blue economy, which is forecasted to triple by the year 2030. So the prosperity and security of our nation is predicated on an understanding the health and the sustainable use of our ocean and coast. So a pleasure to host this panel. I'm going to jump into the questions, and the first one is for everyone. We'll go through this in the sequence I introduced. The question is, if you had the opportunity to invite Marcus back for a part 2 episode, what other highlights would you want him to feature? And let's start with Mike Zuchet.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much, Gaff, and thank you for your generous introduction, and back at you, and thank you for all you do in and around San Diego Bay and our region. Thank you, Betsy and Mark, for helping host this, and for all the great work you do, and honored to be with my fellow panelists. You know, if Marcus came back, I think there was, and I think he did this a little bit, but we could have focused more. You mentioned the traditional maritime industry that's going on at the Port of San Diego and San Diego Bay, and I think people are pretty familiar with the cargo that goes through there. The Navy's presence as one of the largest naval bases in the world, and the largest home porting of naval vessels in the world. The commercial fishing, the port is home to San Diego's fleet, the cruise industry, the shipbuilding and ship repair, which Marcus, if those of you who saw the episode, you may remember when Dennis Dubard walked him out to the facility there at NASCO, Marcus said, "Holy cow," except he didn't say "holy cow" at just the massive scale of that. But I think what is less known is that among ports, we're a leader in promoting the blue economy, and we specifically have a blue economy incubator, which is pretty novel for a public agency. public agencies aren't known for innovation and risk and entrepreneurship, but that's what we started in 2016, actually before I was on the port. And the goal is to invest and get these startups going on the bay with all of this opportunity. And similar to how, Santa Clara Valley has become known as Silicon Valley, some of us hope that San Diego Bay is one day going to be known as Blue Technology Bay. And so we support a number of these entrepreneurs, and we can talk more about some specifics and perhaps some future questions. But to answer your question, Gaff, I would hope he would focus on some real world examples that we've incubated in the last couple of years with some pretty amazing results.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for keeping it to 3 minutes. We got to move through it. So Margaret, you next.
Okay, great. And thanks, Gaff, and thanks to the Downtown Partnership and the Port and everybody associated with this. I think that I would love to have seen him focus on how collaborative the region is. And this panel is a great example of it. We have organizations like that have sort of day-to-day operational responsibilities like the Port. We have groups like the Downtown Partnership that assist us in getting out the message. We have corporations like Blue Nalu, and we have a really vibrant academic and research community here. And all of us see each other regularly and interact regularly. It's not unusual for me to be on a panel with Michael or Gaff or and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Peter Helme and the fishing community. And we all work together. And I think that I've lived in a lot of different communities on the coast, and this is the one that I think is most interactive and has done the best job of really forming such a strong alliance around so many different kinds of organizations that are going to allow us to reach that dream that Michael mentioned of Blue Technology Bay.
Greg, you next.
Thanks, Gaff, and thanks everybody for putting this together. Obviously, it's a dream come true for CNBC to shed so much light on San Diego's blue economy. I think broadly speaking, there's so many other people too that they could have interviewed. For example, Michael, they could have interviewed you from the Port, Margaret, you from Scripps Oceanography, Michael, your colleague, Rafael Castellanos, and so many others at the Port. I wish they could have spent more time with the commercial fishermen. Certainly everybody's aware of TMA Blue Tech. Michael Jones has been a thought leader in this whole space in terms of blue economy, blue tech. Spend more time with the shipbuilders. There's so many opportunities. And that's what, honestly, that's what I love about San Diego. San Diego's blue economy is so complex, is so deep, and is so vibrant that, they really could do a whole series about San Diego and our blue economy. And Gaff, your leadership at Seaport, pulling it all together, I think it's going to be, a wonderful destination for all of us in the future. I would say selfishly, for those that saw the episode, we would love to have a second bite at the apple, if you will, and have Marcus Lemonis come back and, take a tour of our Blue Nalu facility and actually, taste our product. But clearly he'll have to make that decision.
Thanks, Greg. Pete, you next. Pete Helme.
You got me there now, I guess. We had a great time with Marcus when he came here. He joined us at the Fisherman's Market and so on. I'd love to see him come back, because most of the fun we had was the conversations. Somebody from completely outside of our area came, was very interested in fishing, and we're able to kind of explain to him what we do, how we do it, and so on. And explaining to him ourselves what we're doing and what could be improved with what we're doing. And I think I'd like to have him come back. We didn't take him out on our boats. He'd probably love to go out fishing with us for a couple of days. Maybe take him out 1,000 miles and see if he likes that as much. Maybe not. But I think explaining to him what we're about and why we're a big part of this, even though financially we may not be a huge part. And what I'd like for him to come back and see the improvements in a couple of years. We talked about how we're going to fit into the new development down there, how we're going to do all these things, how we're going to have the infrastructure improved for fishing. I'd really love to see him look at it and say, hey, you guys weren't bullshitting. This was really true. You really meant what you were doing, and you're doing something. So I'd like to have him look at our progress in the next couple of years.
Right. Thank you, Pete. So the next question's for Michael Zucchet. Can you talk to us a little bit about your perspective of the port's role in the emerging blue economy and why you feel our region is so uniquely positioned for blue tech innovation on the Bay? Mike.
Thanks. Well, first and foremost, Mother Nature has blessed us with vast natural harbor and bay. That's number one. I think number two was what Margaret said. She really hit it on the head. Collaboration and synergies are buzzwords that are probably overused, but they're really happening in San Diego. And Greg mentioned TMA Blue Tech, and we've got these existing infrastructure and organizations working together. I actually met Margaret in Washington, D.C. when we were lobbying together for funding for sea level rise planning efforts. And so these partnerships are important, and they generate results. And so you take the natural area, you take the partnerships, and then you take, San Diego already is a technology and biotechnology hub, and obviously a lot of that is applicable to the blue economy. So it's sort of all set up for us. And then the port's efforts with its blue economy incubator are partly to help spur the economic activity that comes with that, and part has other benefits like cleaner air and water and other sort of co-benefits of some of these projects. We just launched E-Concrete as one of our entrepreneurs supported by the port, and you may have seen some news coverage just last week. They're doing shoreline enhancements that double as a sort of tide pool habitat that is beneficial in other ways, including water quality. So when you can address a lot of issues simultaneously, you draw on more partners, more collaboration, and things can really spiral from there. And I think that's what we're seeing and what we're just going to see more of.
Thanks, Mike. Pete, the next question's for you. Tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has impacted the commercial fishing industry, because I really felt for you as that it started with dockside markets starting to thrive and wondering what it was going to do, and also your vision for the future of the local commercial fishing industry. Should we come back to Pete in a minute? I think he's maybe trying to get the mute button. Pete, while you're doing that, let me switch to Greg, unless you're there, Pete. Can you hear it? Let me switch a question to Greg then for a minute. Greg, I know I watched with the episode where you were on with Marcus, and I knew you'd have some good fun anecdotes from the fishing expedition. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was kind of a behind the scenes look, but it's always interesting. This is my first time being part of anything like that, so I didn't really know what to expect. Obviously, people saw, or people may have seen episodes that Marcus has been part of from The Prophet. He's known as a type of guy that asks the hard questions. So I was prepared for that for the most part. But what I wasn't prepared for was when we were actually out fishing on the pier over there by Fathom Bait and Tackle Shop. Marcus was actually carrying his fishing rod upside down. And I was talking with Pete the weekend after, and he said all the fishermen noticed that too. And because of that, he actually broke his fishing rod in half and had to get a new one. Of course, they don't show that on TV, but we were there for 3 hours. There were a lot of things that didn't make it into the episode, but that was a highlight, one that I remember.
I'll always remember your face when you asked him if he'd eat your fish. But I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was one of those things where I was waiting for him to ask that question, and we were standing out on the pier for 2.5 hours, and I broke down and I asked the question. It is what it is, but that's why we want to invite him back for a tour and a tasting.
Good. Is Pete Elmer's sound fixed yet? Pete, can you hear me? Can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so you heard my question. You heard the question.
I heard your question, and the question was what kind of improvements have we seen even under the pandemic? And what the pandemic did for us is that it disrupted all our supply chains. We could no longer sell to a processor who then sold to restaurants because neither one was available. So the fishermen sat down and figured, we got a direct market. We got to reach the consumer directly. And we've been talking about that for years, and this forced us to do it in a big scale, not just a small percentage. Fortunately, we had the fishermen's market that told us how to do these things. How do we work together to reach the consumer, and how do we make sure that we get the word out to the people? So at the dockside market, we saw the first few weeks when people showed up, the line extended all the way, well, at least 3/4 of a mile, where people had to come down to the market, because we had to adhere to really strict regulations regarding health. So we only allowed 50 people on the pier at any one time. We moved them on and off the pier and so on. So we served over 1,000 people in a matter of a few hours. But after that, we felt that wasn't enough. So we had a online presence. We had an online store, which bred many other online stores. A lot of the sons and daughters of fishermen started their own direct marketing. So it wasn't only 1 or 2 people. Now I see 15 or 20 direct marketers. And so it started with the pandemic, but I don't think you're going to stop that. I think the way that we're going to sell fish is completely different than what we've done in the past. And I think rather than shipping it thousands of miles away so that other people can really take fantastic products that we have, we'd like to get it to the people here in San Diego, which again brought us, we had a program called Fish to Families, where we got together with some chefs and we give them the seafood, they break it down, and we've served over 20,000 meals to the needy, because as far as I'm concerned, poor people should eat good fish just as much as the rich people. And now we have people line up down there, and I think there are people from La Jolla that are buying cheap clothes and coming down there in order to get the free meals, because the food is just fantastic. We were serving them bluefin tuna. We're serving them. We serve them all the best stuff, but also some of the fish that we normally can't sell. We're asking the chefs to break it down and prepare it so that we get an idea of how to do this. And I think the program is working for fishermen, working for the chefs. They've trained 12 new chefs in how to break down fish, because in today's society, that's all brand new stuff. They're used to getting it in a cellophane package. Now we're giving them a 250-pound fish and asking them to break it down. And so they're learning how to do that. And the needy people are getting fantastic seafood meals. So it's a great program, and I hope to continue it even past the pandemic, because I think that the needy will be there long after everything is recovered.
Thank you, Pete. Margaret, next question for you. Both Scripps and UCSD are real powerhouses driving San Diego's profile in the blue tech, biotech, health science. Do you see any barriers or impediments that would keep us from really becoming an international and national recognized hub for blue tech in the future?
No, I really don't see any big impediments. And Greg referred to TMA Blue Tech and the international reputation that they have made for representing the blue economy and for convening. And wherever I go in the world, people have heard about San Diego, and people talk about, oh, you guys have really put it together there. And what's the secret sauce? And how can we make that happen where we are, whether that's on the East Coast, or whether it's in Europe, or whether it's in Latin America. And even some major ports that I've been in have said, well, yes, we're a much bigger port than San Diego, but we don't have those other sectors. We don't have universities that are working with us, or we don't have community organizations that are here, or we don't have the blue tech sector. So I think that we're really in a position that many others envy, and we really need to capitalize on that. And I think that that we're on the right track, and we need to do an even better job of involving the innovators. And I saw a couple questions in the chat about investors and innovators that are interested in this sector. And I think that we have to reach out to them more effectively.
Good. Next question is for everyone. We'll go in the same order. A big piece of the blue economy is research, innovation, and educating the public about the value and sustainable use of ocean resources. Talk a little bit, or give us some examples about how some of these aspects drive your work in our community and on the ocean. And let's start with Mike Zucchett.
So the best example at the port would probably be aquaculture. People may or may not know that the United States imports the vast majority of the seafood that it consumes. Something like 85% is imported, and from other countries, and half of that is farmed. And so we're trying to help support that the domestic supply of that, although not every species and type of aquaculture is equal when it comes to sustainability. And so, for instance, we have at the port have focused on seaweed and shellfish, because those species tend to survive only on sunlight and water are the only two inputs they need, and they don't need fertilizers and pesticides or nutrients, and they don't produce waste. And they're obviously more sustainable. In addition, they have more of those co-benefits of improving water quality because of the absorption of the contaminants and the processing that they do, and carbon sequestration and everything else. So even within the blue economy, some things are more sustainable and environmentally friendly than others, and we try and do that. And I think the best example is aquaculture. There's one question in the chat just about, do we do this incubator just for the Port of San Diego, or are these things scalable for other places? And the goal is absolutely to have them scalable for other places. And a quick example of that is we funded a marine debris removal vessel, which had sort of a skimmer that took something like 30,000 pounds of debris off of San Diego Bay. And that's something that is happening and going other places now, and other ports are buying that technology now. So it's absolutely something that we want to expand beyond our region.
Right. Margaret, you want next?
Well, yes, I think that that our ability to really think about the way that that research can help with this has to move beyond just thinking about things like the technology and so forth. So a great example, that the other tech that San Diego is so well known for is biotech. And one of the principal processes and technologies that they use in biotech is using green fluorescent protein as a marker for processes. So they can put it into a biological process and then put light on it, and it will fluoresce green. So they can see, oh yes, this enzyme is turned on or it's not turned on, or this organism is doing this metabolic process. And that green fluorescent protein came from an anemone that is common here. It was discovered by a UC San Diego biologist and turned into this tool that everybody uses. Another great example is the heat protein that's in PCR machines, which came from hydrothermal microbes. And some of these things are what we're doing research on, but we really need that connection to to people that are in the innovation sector to understand how to translate some of those amazing discoveries into products and processes that we can use. We're also talking a lot about services. So, in the atmospheric science community, there are all kinds of what we call weather derivatives. NOAA is responsible for the overall weather forecast, but then people do services for special sectors like the hail forecast in the Midwest. And we think that there are a tremendous number of forecasts and tools like that can be spun out of research that are another kind of a blue product that we should be developing. So we're really interested in getting the innovation community into together with us to help us look at these products and discoveries and get them out into another part of the blue economy.
Thanks, Margaret. I'm going to move on to Pete and Greg just for a minute. Some people see cell-based aquaculture and commercial fishing as internally competitive with each other, because if you're actually manufacturing fish versus catching them in the ocean, it would seem that's competitive. Interested in each of your perspectives on that. And Greg, do you want to go first?
Maybe let's let Pete go. I'm happy to, but commercial fishermen were here first. Maybe Pete, you want to start?
You're dodging or what? Pete, go.
Am I unmuted now or not?
Yeah, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me now or not?
You're good. We can hear you good.
Because I thought maybe Greg sabotaged my thing here, but he didn't. So I'm happy to see that. One thing we got to remember is that we got a renewable resource out there. You don't have to do anything at all to it except manage it. If it's properly managed, it's going to renew itself. We got to keep the ocean clean and so on. You don't need to add anything. You don't need to manufacture. You don't need to do anything. And I think let's go back. I'd like to jump back to sustainability. We have some of the strictest fishery management in the world here today, thanks to a collaboration of scientists, fishermen, and regulators. Of approximately 130 stocks fished on the West Coast, only 6 are determined to be overfished and 3 subject to overfishing. And those overfished, we have rebuilt plans, and some of them have been rebuilt in 1 decade and 2 decades instead of 7 or 8 as they're supposed to be, which is the cow cod. And we have the stocks with overfishing. We're currently informing management adjustments to take care of that. So now we have this product that people are being made, and we're told that it has conservation benefits. Well, the only way it has conservation benefits is if you mass produce it, and if you have a demand that becomes very large, and so then the demand for the wild caught fish decreases. As it decreases, the price for the fish decreases, and fishermen no longer fish it because they can't do it. And this would be the way that the cell-based products are done. So the only way they can succeed is by fishing going downhill, and we don't think it's going downhill. So the place where cell-based would work would be in the overfished species where you already have problems and so on, and some conservation benefits can be gained. So there may be other benefits. I'm strictly talking about the conservation benefits, and I think they only exist at the expense of fishing.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that and follow your comments where Pete. It's interesting. So as a company, Blue Nalu, the name Nalu literally in Hawaiian terms means the wave of the ocean, but it's also used as a slang term to mean mindfulness and going with the flow. So we're very cognizant and aware and mindful of our impact, not only on fish and conservation benefits, but on the community. So we've been very mindful about our species selection strategy. So Pete, exactly to your point, we're really focusing on those species that are primarily imported into the United States. Chairman Zucat mentioned earlier, we import, nobody really knows the number, to be honest. It's somewhere between 60 and 90% of the seafood that we consume in America is imported from other countries. Yes, we do have the most sustainable fisheries management program in the world here in the United States, but the seafood that we import really doesn't have the same guidelines. So our fishermen in the United States are held to a standard that not other fishermen are held to. So that's one problem. And that's why we're focused on, again, those species that are primarily imported and also difficult to farm raise. We see Blue Nalu as the third option. So today you have wild caught, farm raised. In the future, you'll have wild caught, farm raised, and cell based, and being very transparent about to consumers about where the seafood comes from. And then I'll just end on a point that the United Nations really highlights is that with the growing population, there really is still not enough seafood to meet that growing demand. So by the year 2030, the UN is predicting 28 million metric tons of new seafood production will be required just to meet growing demand. That would be even if that's the Blue Nalu focus, that would be thousands of Blue Nalu factories all around the world to still not even meet that demand. So we see ourselves as very much in alignment with commercial fishermen and the commercial fishing sector in the United States.
Thanks, Greg. Before we go into Q&A, I want to go into a question for everyone, and I think people question what the blue economy is. I'd like each of you just to take a minute or two and talk about what the blue economy means to you personally as you explain this to the people on this webinar or the public. And I'll start with Michael.
So, in terms of just a definition, you did that earlier. I mean, for us, it's not just economic benefits and economic growth. It's social and environmental progress as well, and that's done through the collaboration and partnerships of a lot of other things going on in San Diego, which is what happens on the Bay is complementary to everything else in our region. So, specifically for us with the Blue Economy Incubator, it's about seeking people, entrepreneurs, companies who have ideas and are innovative, and as we said earlier, are scalable, not only to the entire Bay, but to other ports who are going to, as Peter said, help us manage these resources and help solve the challenges of the ocean. And so, and of course, the benefit perhaps direct, perhaps it's a side benefit, is the economic growth that comes from that, and it spirals on itself. So the more San Diego becomes known as a hub of this type of technology and innovation activity, the more people who locate here, like, you know, Blue Nalo, for instance, chose to locate here, and that's not a coincidence. And the more companies and people come from around the world to join in the fray. So it's something that can spiral in a good way very quickly.
Thanks, Mike. Margaret?
You know, there's an interesting book that came out a few years ago called Blue Mind, and it talks about the way that the ocean influences the state of mind of people that live near it or use it regularly, and that it actually has health benefits. And for me, it's sort of the blue mind, the blue world, and the blue economy is such an important part of that, because it's kind of the part of the interpersonal transaction part, and the blue world, the blue mind is more of you know, what we experience as individuals. And I think that it's so important and to everybody that lives on the coast, but people that don't live on the coast don't realize how important it is for them. They don't realize that the ocean controls their precipitation, even if they live in Nebraska. They don't realize that the ocean affects other aspects of their climate. They don't realize that, you know, 2 billion people on the planet depend on seafood as their primary protein. And San Diego does understand that. And for me, the blue economy is the part where we exchange ideas and services and products that are a reflection of that larger view, that blue mind, that blue state that we all enjoy so much in San Diego. And I think that as we communicate about the blue economy, we're really communicating about that different way of thinking about those transactions, sustainable, not just transactional, and full of so many opportunities. So that's what the blue economy means to me.
Thanks, Margaret. Greg?
Yeah, I'll add on to that just by saying, you know, it's our ticket forward. Honestly, you know, the ocean is 2/3 of the planet. 98% of habitable Earth is underwater. 1/2 of every breath that we take is just, you know, the result of ocean-based organisms. You know, it's critical. So we have to understand the ocean, and Scripps Oceanography is doing tremendous work in helping us understand the ocean, and several other organizations. We have to understand what's going on, but we also have, you know, we have to see it as an economic opportunity. You know, the theory of change is that you don't care about something unless you actually benefit personally from it. And if most people don't understand that they do benefit personally from it because of the oxygen and the, you know, the way it regulates climate, you know, absorbs heat as a result of the climate crisis, they're not going to care about it. So by creating blue jobs, you're actually creating an army of advocates and activists that care about the ocean and force politicians and regulators and policymakers, NGOs, and others to all be swimming in the same direction. You know, none of us are getting out of this planet alive. So how do we leave it better for the next generation through a robust blue economy that creates jobs, you know, allows for sustainable solutions that, you know, frankly, preserves our species. So I think it's absolutely critical. And San Diego, by the way, as we talked about, is the epicenter of blue economy in America. You know, so we have the opportunity as a region, and it's already being done, but it needs to be amplified. We have the opportunity as a region to develop those solutions and export those solutions globally. And I think you're already starting to see that. So, you know, it's tremendous.
Thanks, Greg. Ida? Ida? Can you hear us? Peter, you're on mute.
Am I unmuted now? Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. You see,
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Well, one thing about the new technology, it's completely baffled me. So I'll lead with that. To me, the blue economy has a certain base products that they've been producing for many years. Uh, Fishing, transport, waste management. There's a few of them that are very basic, and people tend to ignore them because of the la-di-da, the frou-frou that everybody's excited about. They pump a lot of money into it, and they hire these fantastic salesmen like Greg. I wish I could steal him away and he could represent fisheries, because we'd be doing much better than we are now. But I think let's not pay too much attention to all that and forget all those base things. If we don't have good fishing, good well-managed fisheries and so on, we don't have ocean transport, all the other things rely on that. And I think that's where I, as much as I like to dream about all these fantastic things, and I think we will with climate change, we will have to come up with many things that are very basic, that aren't just work around the edges to make a few people rich. There are very basic things that have to be altered if we go in the next 30, 40 years. I won't be bothering you for 30 years.
Okay, so I hope you will. Let's kind of end the formal questions, and I want to go through some of the questions we've got. We have close to 400 people that have been on this call, so we got a lot of questions, and we've just the people helping in the background have gone through them, and I'd like to ask a few of them, and if anyone wants to chime in, do that. The first one of our panel can chime in, I guess. But the first one's from Michelle, and it's, what is the plan to market the importance and impact of San Diego's blue economy locally? I'd like to just quickly answer that from my perspective around Seaport. At our Seaport project, we call it a quadruple bottom line. It's the 4 Ps. It's about people, planet, profit, obviously, and purpose. And the real purpose of our project is to educate the public around the blue economy. We call our project a hydrophilic district. It's a district that's really around the love of water. And it's not something we just talk about, it's something we believe in. Education and our work with Margaret and her team is very much around education, both lifelong education for kids and for people in later stages of their life. So for us, it's really about a different project. It's about a project with a soul, and it's really about educating the public about the crisis we face ahead of us. Anyone else on the panel want to add to that? Any thoughts on that? Going once, twice? Raise your hand.
Can you hear me now?
Talk. Yes.
You know,
go ahead.
One of the things you would think living in San Diego, everybody would know about fishing. But when we started the dockside market, one of the most important things is that we don't sell fish, we sell fishing. Fishermen explain to the lay public, the people of San Diego, what fishing is all about. And you'd be surprised how little they know what goes on, the type of species that we have, how we fish, and so on. And some of the most fun we've had is on Saturdays explaining to the community who we are as fishermen, what do we do, and how do we do it. And it's I think it's that connection between everything. We assume that people know it, and yet the most of the public don't know very much about what we do.
Okay. The next question is from Cliff. What are the biggest barriers to keeping San Diego from becoming the blue tech hub of the United States? And I think this was a question I asked Margaret. Obviously, we're in a competition for becoming the hub, but what are the biggest barriers? And I don't know if any of the panelists want to answer that. I have a thought, but let me go to the panelists first.
I'll just add maybe awareness, getting more people aware, just like we're doing now, thanks to the Port Downtown Partnership and the Regional EDC for pulling this all together. The fact that there were almost 400 participants at some point during this panel is amazing. So it's awareness and getting more young people involved for workforce development. It's the blue collar jobs is going to take on a whole new meaning. It's going to be ocean related.
Yeah, my thought with it's not a barrier. I think this is the success that we have ahead of us, and it's really around Scripps and the organization that Margaret leads and the Navy. And I think the research that's been done is those are the reason that San Diego has one of the largest clusters of blue tech companies in the country. And I think having a vibrant Scripps with doing the research, attracting research dollars, and having the presence of the Navy here, which is growing, I think will be what drives us. If those two aspects fall away or diminish, I think our influence in the country as a blue tech hub will diminish. So
well, we're not going to let we're not going to let work at Scripps diminish, Gaff. And actually, we've been working hard to increase it dramatically. And we have had in 2019, we had a 20% increase in our research funding. And in 2020, we had another 20% increase in research funding in spite of the economy. And it's really, I think it's really a reflection of the fact that we have taken this much more holistic view of what we do. To engage in research that's related to problem solving, like sea level rise, like the sustainability of fisheries and so forth. And we also feel a really strong responsibility to partner in education, not at education beyond the university level. And while Cindy Martin was here at San Diego Unified, we worked very closely with her to talk about how to, within the constraints that the teachers have for the standards that they have to teach to and so forth, how to really imbue the curriculum with opportunities for children to understand the heritage of San Diego with the ocean, both in fishing and commerce and Navy and so forth, to have them understand how powerful the ocean is in affecting human life, to help them understand this blue economy. And I think that if we think about all of those connections and then making our future, our children understand that is really a really powerful tool for us to be able to grow this blue economy and to export not only our reputation as leaders in it, but also capabilities beyond San Diego.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. I think a very relevant question came, and it's about our partnering with our neighbors to the south, with Tijuana. I've always felt that San Diego and Tijuana are really joined at the hip, and we really form an amazing community between the two areas that really cross-pollinate each other. I'd like to kind of pitch that question to the panel and about, the ocean doesn't end at the border fence, right? The ocean flows between both countries. We know that we're dealing with pollution issues from Tijuana. Share your thoughts on how the blue economy and the partnership with Baja and with Tijuana may be able to be expanded and work together on, initiatives work together on. Interested in perspectives on that.
Well, I'll start from the science and education perspective. The primary oceanographic institution in Mexico is, it's not in Tijuana, it's in Ensenada, but that's close by too. The number one and number two, it's called CSESI, and it is part of the University of Baja California. And the number one and number two people at that oceanographic institution are both graduates of Scripps Oceanography. We have a really close relationship. We have a seminar series that's been going on for years, where one year we have it in Ensenada, and the next year we have it on the Scripps campus. And it has spawned a long history of collaborative research. And now we're bringing the blue economy into that, focusing on what each of us does that's economically relevant, and how we can share that and leverage each other's discoveries and each other's work. So that's one example of how we can work cross-border.
Michael, what are your thoughts as this really vibrant port on how Tijuana may be able to partner with us, if there are any partnering initiatives underway, and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, it's one thing we've left out when we talk about, one thing I left out when I answered the question about, why is our region the right one for this, to be the leader, and, having that geographic and personal relationship with Mexico is definitely a big one. And I think you've seen with our previous mayor, and especially our current mayor, the not just words but actions and partnering with leadership south of the border. The aforementioned Tijuana River Valley environmental catastrophe is something that I think is no longer a source of tension, but a source of how are we going to fix this together. I think both sides of the border want to get that resolved. And so, I think it just presents a big opportunity. One of the reasons, from the commercial fishing industry to the history of Scripps and other institutions is, these are not a bunch of Johnny-come-latelys to this area. Most of our commercial fishermen are, and this was highlighted in the program, our second, third, fourth generation members of the fishing industry in San Diego. And I think there's a similar longevity with leadership and issues south of the border that are ripe for collaboration with the right political leadership. And I think we've got that in San Diego to take advantage of it. And I think the port needs to do as much or more in that as well. So I think it's an excellent point.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Michael. I see we're getting close to our closing time. I'd like to end off with Betsy maybe closing it out with the last few words, and also remind everyone that there is a recording of this webinar on the website to all registered attendees. We got an amazing amount of really great questions, and I just don't have the time to go through everything, so I apologize for that. And maybe we'll do a second panel coming up if that makes sense. But really appreciate everyone being here. Honored to be moderating this with these great people on it. And I'll hand to Betsy to a few closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Gap. It's times like this that I wish we're in person to give a round of applause to all of our panelists. We were joined by more than 300 people today, so there's definitely a big interest in this topic. We hope you're all leaving the discussion like we are, even more excited about the bright future of our blue economy than even after you were watching Street of Dreams. Marcus himself said it right. What we have here along Harbor Drive, in downtown, in the region, and along San Diego's Blue Tech Bay is wildly special. We look forward to continuing to work with today's panelists, our moderator, Gaff, our co-hosts at the Port of San Diego and the San Diego Regional EDC, and all of you to keep this upward trajectory going, and to show the world that the creative, sustainable use of ocean resources can be an incredible economic driver for our community. We will be sending out a recap email that includes a recording of today's webinar, as well as links to some of the resources mentioned. Thank you again for joining us. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you again soon. Bye-bye.